those two traits are totally true, Josh. Yeah, they want to help and they're so passionate about what they do. And they think about what it is you like doing in your spare time. Think about what it is you do, and time just zips by, and before you know it, 3 hours have gone. And if that's an area that you think, oh, I'd like to work in that, there will be an engineering role in it somewhere. And that's the realization I've had much later in life, that engineering is absolutely everywhere. You know, you could look in this studio, a relatively small room where you and I are sat here now, Josh, and you can look around and you go, yeah, there's engineering in that. It's everywhere. I'm excited about it because it makes us humans live better on Earth. We can live probably wealthier, healthier lives, but also there's money to be made. It's the fact that it makes the world a better place. I don't think there's anything more to it than that.
What sparked your interest in engineering?
Do you know what, I think it's probably my mum and dad. Both. So my dad trained as an engineer, but didn't go to university. Mechanical engineering, did that at college, and went on to work in the automotive industry. And same with my mum. She was like she did technical drawing before you had CAD and whatever else. CAD's probably outdated now.
Still there,
okay,
but yeah.
CAD. So she studied technical drawing and had a grasp of how things work. Both of them had a grasp of how things work. And that was always very obvious at home, because one or the other or both were always, fixing something, the tap or the lawnmower or the hinge or something, very, very hands-on. And that's what I just saw as that's what people do. So that there is no alternative to me. And it's later in life I was saying, oh, not everybody does that.
Yeah.
Some people call in somebody to fix a squeaky door, which is fine. But as a kid, that's how I saw the world, that you understand how things work, and sometimes you take it apart to understand how it works and what's wrong, and then you put it back together, or you come up with a fix. So it's probably that, more than anything else, that was my inspiration to then, when it came the end of my A-levels or junior A-levels, to go, right, what do I want to do? It was like, wow, engineering probably feels about right.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was nothing more than that. And I didn't even read the university prospectus of what it would entail. The only other thing I considered was architecture, because I also like technical drawing.
Yeah.
But a mate in the year above had done mechanical engineering. I thought, yeah, we're quite similar. I'll do that.
Yeah, there we go. We're the same. I'm a mechanical engineer as well, so we're on a good start. I love how things work. That's the almost like the thought process of why is that way.
Yeah.
The amount of people I've spoken to who have said a similar thing, and it's just, as soon as you identify that, almost it begins to make sense, and then it's like that's where engineering comes from. And we can explore all the different discussion points around what goes into engineering or what requires engineering. But let's be honest, everything needs engineering.
Yeah, it does. And that's the realization I've had much later in life, that engineering is absolutely everywhere. You could look in this studio, a relatively small room where you and I are sat here now, Josh, and you can look around and you go, yeah, there's engineering in that. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Absolutely everywhere. The difference between my brain and two other friends of mine, or one particular who I do a podcast with, and I know him through university. He did mechanical engineering as well. He's an inventor. And so his brain is not how does stuff work, which is what I'm interested in. His is, how can I make it better?
Yeah.
He's always looking, how can this be done better? I'm quite happy with status quo, and go, oh, I don't really like how that works. Oh, well, I'll work around it. He's like, right, no, there must be a better way to do this.
Yeah,
and they're probably two different sides of engineering.
Exactly.
Engineering and engineering design.
Absolutely. There's it's the product design element as well, that kind of mindset of,
yes.
I recorded recently someone who used to work at Dyson, and
yeah,
the mindset there is almost kind of a bit different as well, and it's like problem solving to find a solution. It's the environment you set yourself in to enable innovation to come out.
Yes.
And I think that's another point which is really important. When you can inspire young people to become engineers, you're inspiring them to become innovators as well.
Yeah,
but by the sheer nature of going into it and realizing or recognizing a problem or a challenge, the innovative mindset that comes along to fix something, is so important. So the more engineers you have, by sheer maths, the higher chance of having an innovator would be as well. So yeah, it's really interesting. So talk me through school into university. You picked engineering, as you said. You've had people who have inspired you to become engineers.
Yeah.
How was university? How did you find university? Because you studied mechanical engineering with French.
Yeah, so when I went to the University of Bath, they had an option with their mechanical engineering masters, which it was at the time. They didn't do bachelors; it was masters, to do it with a language, and it was German or French. And I'd grown up in France, and going to university. Went from France. So I went to a British school in Paris. So I was fluent, but kind of on the lowest side of fluent. So I thought, I could do it with French as a kind of, that would be an easy win. It wasn't easy, but it was an amazing experience because we did one module of our degree, one module each semester we did in French, which was typically solid mechanics. So you do solid mechanics with a French lecturer in French. And you think, well, maths is maths in any language, right? It's just numbers. It's not. The French do their engineering completely differently. I'll tell you about it later. We don't need to get it. Or maybe we do. No, I was just thinking who your audience is. It's not necessarily qualified engineers, so I don't want to put them off. But the French make it so much more complicated than it needs to be, I found anyway. But I think if you were, the principle of it means that you could go on and solve anything because you start at absolute base level and you build up. You start by defining your universe. Okay. It's quite philosophical, which is also typically French as well. And I'm not knocking the French; I love it. Anyway, so I came from France. So I thought I'll do it with French. But the best bit about that was that it turned my 4-year master's degree into a 5 years because I had to do a year in industry in France. I chose to do that with some uni buddies at a roller bearings factory, which just happened to be located in a town called Annecy, which is in the French Alps with a beautiful lake. So we spent a year there and had an absolute blast.
Now I'm seeing where the outdoor enthusiast comes from.
Yeah, and that comes from my parents as well, but I could really exercise that enthusiasm. So that was awesome. And then my final year went back to France to a French university to do my final year dissertation in French for my master's. And that was hard.
That's amazing.
Again, chose that down in Lyon near the Alps.
That's a good choice.
I like the mountains, Josh.
I think that's... going back to the point that you made, because I'll be honest, I didn't know the French kind of taught engineering differently or see it differently. But that's quite interesting because I guess that in itself kind of opened your eyes to a whole different thought process, which would probably complement your own thought process as well.
Yeah.
Not to say that you would utilise it or use it that way, but it would just give you a different perspective around things, which I guess would be good.
Yes, it was good. I mean, the biggest learning is how much more respect the word engineer has in France. If you're an engineer, people are like, oh, right, okay. Because in the French language, the engineering term, the word engineer is reserved for basically people who've done a master's in engineering and who are working at, I don't know, Airbus or doing really technical, heavy maths type stuff. It's not used as freely as we use it in English, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. Where you might have an engineer who fixes your car or your boiler, which is, but it is very much semantics. So that was a massive realization. Like, oh wow, right. And I think the same is in America as well. Yeah, the term engineer is used differently.
I know that the same is also in Pakistan as well.
Right,
they hold it very highly.
Right,
and there's similar to. If someone has like a charter ship, like CEng on their name, they preserve. I think there's letters they preserve within a name for engineer, similar to like doctor, which is quite interesting as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask me, I'm pro engineering, so I think we should have that in English as well. 100%.
Me too. I think what can be a challenge though is that because we use it so broadly, it's very difficult to know what we mean by engineer. If you're talking to young people who are looking towards a career and you talk about, you could be an engineer.
Yeah, right.
Like, well, what does that mean?
It's a really good point you make for that, a number of reasons. So like, certainly from my experience, there's different types of engineer, like you said. So you can have like a project engineer, which sits more within like the kind of management side of it. But then you then have mechanical engineers, you then have test engineers, which, one never ever wears a set of overalls in their whole career, and the other one's, walking around with hydraulic oil all over them almost.
Exactly.
And it's the kind of variety of it, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I know, and that's where communicating is really important. But because engineering is such a broad discipline.
So when you're talking about those roles there, I think what brings all of that together is your mindset, right? Because it's about problem solving,
That's it.
and that's it. That's
Full
the
stop.
engineer, and you could probably could put a full stop at that, and
Yeah.
then let that play out. Use that as your introduction, and then let's talk about what that means underneath it.
That's it. Identify problem solving, or as I put it, the engineering mindset. Once you've identified that, then explore the world within it.
What can I do with this? Where can I take it?
That's
what
it.
industries? I don't know, what roles?
Yeah.
And it could be management. It could be really fiddly, hands-on, technical detail.
There's a organisation called Ingenuity who talk a lot around skills.
Yep.
And that name, Ingenuity, is almost, maybe you could say, more of a kind of accurate reflection of being an engineer.
Yeah.
Than the actual engineering, like you said. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. So you come to the end of university.
Yeah.
What was next after that then?
I can be really honest about this, Josh, because I was honest about it in an article that I wrote for the University of Bath's kind of alumni communications recently, in that I probably didn't take my engineering degree as seriously as many others, and definitely not as others who are there now studying, because there's a much bigger cost implication than when I was there. So I didn't take my engineering degree that seriously. I wanted to do well. I wanted to get a good grade, but I didn't pay any attention at all as to what I wanted to do after university. I didn't get as involved in the mechanical engineering department as I could have, as I might have if I were back there doing it now. Good old hindsight. I was at uni. I had an amazing time. I made an incredible network of very, very close friends who I'm still very, very close with now, and I see lots of them regularly. That, for me, was a massive takeaway from being at university. I got involved in the football club. I played loads of football and made really strong bonds there. I did student radio, which was something that opened up just a little flicker at the back of my head. Oh, this is fun. This is a fun little hobby that I hadn't done before. That's fun. And so the degree was kind of what took me there, and the degree was something that was scheduled and was every day, every week, every month, every semester. You go through your years, you get it done, and that end was going to come at some point. And I was kind of dreading that end because I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea. Yeah,
that's, you've kind of tapped into not necessarily a trend, but there is people who I've spoken to and speak to and they've been to university, and it's kind of what you make of it. You go to university to get a degree to then get a job. Okay, that's the kind of that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But along that way, you have the ability to freely get involved with societies, get involved with things that just trigger interest, like you said with the radio, which builds you up in a way and opens up doors which you weren't going to university to do.
No.
And then, your career's kind of then just taken off from that. So I think, as much as you said they're reflecting maybe that you didn't take university, I don't want to say seriously because I don't believe that, because you got through it, which is hard enough.
It was hard. I found it hard.
It's hard.
It was right at like the limit of my mental capacity to get my degree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then to then open up the other doors, to me, is actually a massive bit of advice that you can give to a young person, is you can get involved with societies and stuff that's going on, because it will open up your network, which you've now got.
I go back. I've maintained links with the Department of Mechanical Engineering at University of Bath, and I go back and I see the students there now. Like, oh my God, you're so impressive. You are so impressive with the work you're doing, with the skills you have, with your interest and passion. This is good.
Yeah,
this is good.
Absolutely, yeah.
I could have been more like that, but I don't. But no regrets, Josh.
No, absolutely, yeah.
Because to do that would have been more time and more commitments in that area, and I was busy at uni, and I loved how I spent my time.
Absolutely.
I loved it.
Your own unique way, and that's the most important thing. So, how did you then get into the kind of communication world then within engineering? Because obviously you've been involved with a lot of different programs, and was it your work doing this kind of student radio? Did that kind of open up that door? What was the step after university that then took you into the kind of broadcasting world?
That was definitely a step. It was probably the first step to realise, oh yeah, this is cool. But only now that I look back on it, it wasn't conscious at the time. It was just a fun thing to do that my mate said, oh, do you fancy doing this? Oh yeah, that'd be great. The Lats and Bell show, we can do that once a week. and loved doing it and put loads of time and energy preparing it and doing the shows. But at the time, wasn't aware that it would go on to be helpful. And so after uni, I went to Canada and skied for a year and traveled around for a year, again, mountains theme, and then came back, got a job. And I remember sitting by a lake in Canada before I was going to have to come back and reality was going to hit. I was like, what am I actually into? And it was a module that I really enjoyed. There were two modules that I really enjoyed during my degree. One was biomechanics and the other was energy and the environment. So I thought, right, let me do energy and the environment, probably influenced by the fact that I was sitting by this beautiful mountain lake. And I am passionate about the sustainability and the environment. So I came back and got a job in that. Not graduate job, no, and they just wrote off to loads of companies, got myself a job and worked as a project manager for a not-for-profit environmental organisation for 8 years. And in doing that, I became a media spokesperson for them. So, ended up on, BBC, I don't know, breakfast, or if there's been a cold snap or, an energy price hike, stuff like that. Sky News, all of that, and you'd be live and you'd do an interview, and it was quite exciting, quite fun. And then I did like hospital radio and volunteer radio, did a French radio station in London for a little while as well, because I enjoyed doing that. And then I got to a point where I became quite frustrated with work. Public sector, it just took quite long for any decisions to be made. I'm sure you feel that sometimes, Josh. And I was like, there must be more enjoyment. There must be more to your working career than turning up to an office. What do I really, really love? And I went to see a career counsellor to help me figure it out. And it's not like they give you the answer. It's all in here. They just help you tease it out. Because I'm not great at coming to conclusions and coming to answers myself. I need a little helping hand because I just get bored if I don't have the answer straight away. And so I'll just, watch some comedy and then everything's fine again. This career counsellor got me to the point, which I knew anyway, actually I probably wanted to be working in broadcasting. And so I left that job at the Energy Saving Trust and I thought, right, let's try and work in broadcasting. And I remember exactly, very, very vividly, being at home on a Monday for the first day of not working for the company, going, Christ, what am I supposed to do now?
That's a whole different challenge, isn't it? That is amazing. I like the bit of advice you gave there in terms of going to a counsellor, reaching out to somebody from a careers point of view, and knowing that you had the answer, but someone just coaxed it out of you.
Yeah,
is really quite good. I speak to a lot of students, and they come to me with, I've got to a stage in my course now where I can go and do design or I can go and do process or systems. And most of the time I speak to them, they know the answer already.
Yeah.
But what they do is they just get to kind of offload it, get perspective from somebody.
Yes.
Maybe draw a mind map,
Absolutely.
offload, and then it just all comes out and then they run off and then that's them. And it sounds like that happened to you.
But it was so lovely having the confidence because of these exercises I did with the career counsellor. Again, it's not rocket science. It's just like go back through all the stuff, I don't know, from GCSEs right up till now. What are the projects or little things, either at work or outside of work, things you've done with your friends and projects? What are you proudest of?
That's it. What
do you look back and go, oh, that was fun? If you didn't have to worry about money, what would you do? All these, cliched questions, but they really, really work. And you come out and I took that very seriously, and I'd really think about it and I'd write it all down and then it just became very, very clear. I was like, right, there's a real pattern here. I love showing off and being on camera and talking in microphones and stuff like that. It's all right. Why not do a bit more of that?
Exactly why you're on the podcast. But no, I think the point you make there as well is like you found what you were. I talk about this as what you're passionate about, because see, when you've got passion behind something, there's nothing stopping you.
No, then you're away.
You're away, and when the tough times come along, you remind yourself why you're doing it,
and you can write it out. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's really interesting. So we're going to jump straight into some of the awesome shows that you've just. I'm going to go straight to the. You've obviously covered bridges, submarines. What's been the kind of favourite one that you've been involved with so far?
So, I was thinking about this last night. The first real engineering telly program I made was for BBC Two. It went out on Sunday nights, and it was a part of a tiny little 3-part series called Engineering Giants. And the first thing we did, and I had no idea what I was doing at the time because I was fresh-faced and had no clue what this whole filming malarkey was about. And you've got more than one person behind the camera, and there's sound, and it's all done properly. God, I don't know if I'm good at this or not. What's going on? And we went to the British Airways maintenance hangar in Cardiff Airport, just off Cardiff Airport, and we followed. It's called a D check. It's every 6 years, I think. 747-400s at the time. It's about 2012. Would undergo this massive check where everything comes off. The engines come out, all the fan blades coming out the engines, all the seats, everything's stripped. And we were there and we got amazing access. I was crawling around inside the fuel tanks, walking out along the wings, everything. That is still one of my favorite documentaries that I have been involved in, that I've made. And I haven't watched it for a while. My presenting style will be very different then to how it is now. I feel like I probably hold the audience much better now because I know what I'm doing. But then it was a kind of more naive curiosity and love of what I was being allowed to go and do that probably has its own charm, I imagine. But I loved that.
Yeah.
That is still one of my favourite episodes. And it was beautifully made as well. The production company and everybody who worked on it was absolutely fantastic.
One of my favourite ones that you've been involved with, and I can't remember the name, but it was when you were basically going through Tower Bridge and you're underneath. And I watched it from the perspective of you were in it, but also from this perspective of an engineer and the curiosity element of it and seeing it all and breaking down what is an incredible landmark for the UK, but also the engineering systems that build it up, and the way that you talk about the old and the new and seeing behind the scenes. I really, really enjoyed that because I relate it back to being an engineer of these complex structures similar to the aircraft you mentioned. When you actually break it down, there's all these wee small systems within it. And when you see that and show that behind the scenes, I find that really, really important because it shows that there's so much that goes into it and not just one engineer, essentially, or one company.
And you really saw this at BA's hangar down there. Like the teams, it's like 24/7 for 5 or 6 weeks. Can't remember what it is, and I can't remember what it's called. Like the list of jobs that need doing, they're all filed away in this massive room, and it comes down to the minutiae job that needs to be doing, but it's all kind of sectioned off into I don't know, wings and aviation. There's loads to it. It was fascinating, but it is that curiosity just to keep asking questions until I'm satisfied. Like, right, I think I've got that. I think I know how that works, and
that's amazing.
Might tell someone about that.
So where we crossed paths first, we didn't cross paths, but I was sitting at Faslane Naval Base, so HM Naval Base Clyde, and I worked at Babcock International, and you were touring around in a car and producing a full documentary on essentially the Britain's Trident submarines, which is amazing because I remember sitting watching it. Because anything to do with submarines when I worked at Faslane, I sat and watched the TV because I was like, I wonder if they're capturing it the way I see it.
Yeah. And probably still now you've still got that, right?
I still do it even though I'm not there. And
did you watch the series? You probably did BBC Vigil.
Oh, Vigil, yeah. Exactly.
And were you one of those going, well, it doesn't look anything like that?
Well, it's funny because I wasn't in the Navy. A lot of those in the Navy said, it's not like that. But when I watched it, I thought they've done a very good job in terms of giving you an appreciation. In terms of size, I think they made like the submarine look bigger than it actually was. I definitely can't remember that size, especially when you're going around like when you're going in like the back aft and you're like literally crawling underneath. Like pipework, what else? But so that's where we kind of crossed it first. And
that's awesome that you were there.
Yeah, how did you find that?
We didn't spend very long at Faslane. We actually went back to Faslane after I'd been out on the sub.
Is that right? Okay.
You make it look like you're there, and then you're going to go off for telly.
4 days you spent on it. Is that right?
Yeah, because that in itself was tricky because we didn't know when that was going to come. We didn't know when we're going to get the call to say, right, it's happening tomorrow. Because it was that. It was like, it's happening tomorrow for obvious reasons. In terms of national security.
Absolutely.
And I had other jobs, throughout that summer. Where I'd be away for a whole week filming, I think it was Walking Britain's Lost Railways. So I'd be somewhere in the country with a production crew, and it's all been scheduled and planned for months, this shoot. And the execs on that series were very understanding to say, well, look, if you get the call and you're partway through, then we understand you have to go and we'll come back and we'll finish it off. I was very grateful for them for that. But for weeks, I had 2 bags. When I'd be going away on shoots, so I had the bag that I needed that week and the bag just in case I got the call from the Navy, via the Navy to say, right, we're on. Yeah, it was really exciting.
Yeah, I love you showing behind the scenes of that because, and I remember when I started the podcast, I remember thinking I can't talk about having worked at Faslane, and you're
Yeah.
always conscious because obviously it's national security.
Yep, and you've signed
the Official Secrets Act,
exactly.
But you got to show a lot, which was I found amazing, and somebody who's worked there, I was like, that's why you want to work at Faslane.
Yeah.
Look at the kit you're going to work on.
Yeah.
This is amazing stuff. So any particular part that you enjoyed in terms of within the submarine or dealing with the Navy? Or
I loved the rear half of the sub, which is where the engineers basically hang out and work. The front half is your more operations side, which was great as well. And my God, when you see those guys work together, I've not seen teamwork like that.
Yeah, that's I agree.
Because when I was out there, they were kind of setting fires in inverted commas. So, putting on emergencies and then testing how the crew dealt with it. And, oh, man, I was so impressed. Honestly, I've never seen anything like it. But to go out the back and hang out with the engineers, it was a more chilled vibe, generally. But also, it was really, really interesting to see everything. And what we showed on the program was one thing. We got to see a bit more as well.
Yeah.
But as we say, we can't talk about all of that.
Very, very impressive. But I think certainly the most impressive I've worked with in terms of like team and commitment to their job role as well.
It's fascinating.
And then the other one which we've crossed over is the work that you do with EDF. So you've done some work on nuclear power stations. Bizarrely, again, I've been at Heysham 2 as well. And watching those videos again, amazing to show what is kind of like the kind of mystery of like people think of nuclear power stations and they might not think about the amount of electricity it generates, the base load for the country, etc. But seeing behind the scenes again and seeing like the pile cap and the where the fuel rods are disposed and the ponds or whatever. So how did you find working with that? And
it was cool, and it's one of those things, Josh. And this is what I love most about my job. I think is the access I get to places that are off limits to most people, and the people you get to meet. And typically that's engineers who wouldn't say that they're special. I'm just doing my job. But what they do is like linchpins for, as you say, for keeping the country running in whatever guise it may be. And it's a massive privilege to have those two things together as your job. So I love that. Yeah, so Heysham 2, but I think the most special bit for that was the spent fuel rods ponds. You're like, oh, right. Oh, it's there. Right. Okay. I see it. Interestingly enough, I've got a big bag with me today. So after this, I'm flying down to the south of France this evening to go to ITER, which is a massive international collaborative project to develop nuclear fusion. So I'll be checking out the other side of nuclear tomorrow, which is really interesting.
That's so exciting. When we were speaking the other week about projects you've got coming up and what you're doing and to get to ITER, I've had light involvement with some projects with that when I worked at Deuce and Babcock, who have like a lot of lifting equipment for like the tokamak design, whatever. And I'm excited to see what you produce with that, because that is if I was an engineering student and I don't know about that, you need to know about ITER and the work that they're doing there and what they're exploring. So that's that.
But not only in France. There's stuff happening in the UK.
In Oxford,
I think there are at least 2, if not 3, private commercial entities who are developing nuclear fusion.
Yep.
I think they're all tokamak. I might be wrong.
The kind of donut.
The donut that would hold the plasma within which you get your nuclear fusion reaction. It's an incredibly exciting industry. It's slow. Progress is very, very slow because
and expensive, because it's essentially a massive R&D project, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Each one of these is a massive R&D project. But when they break it, when they get there, when you can get a sustainable reaction, that we've solved a lot when we get to that point. And it's exciting to think that is happening, and there are people like me and you, ordinary people, who have specialized in the subject and who can come together to put their knowledge, experience, their innovation, their daring to try something different to get to that point where we're still, 10, 15 years off of commercial fusion energy, but we're 10, 15 years away. It's so exciting. It's so exciting. And if you don't I only found out that this was happening in the UK about a year ago, and I'm supposed to be an engineer.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's and we're talking here about nuclear energy, nuclear fusion. There are other industries like that. So where the UK, and I think from my generation, it's seen we're probably at a point where a lot of engineering was lost from Britain, or that's what we'd heard from the generation before us. The big scale manufacturing, particularly in automotive, that just doesn't happen in the UK on the scale it does anymore. So I'm left with this feeling that I've heard a lot in the news and rhetoric and from generations above me that, engineering in the UK is just get dead now. It's gone elsewhere. It's not true. We may not have large scale manufacturing. There is still some large scale manufacturing, but not to the extent it was. But there's so much specialist engineering going on in all sorts of industries and all sorts of fields, and it's incredibly exciting, Josh.
You've hit it, exactly that. And it's, well, as I've said to you beforehand, it's like the ability to communicate engineering is more important than ever, and I think that's one of the reasons why, because I think there is this kind of feeling that we don't engineer in the UK. There's so much. Like, people ask me, so what's happening in Scotland at the moment? I mean, how long have we got? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it's
what industry or what role? What do you want to talk about?
Upgrading ports for delivery of offshore wind turbine equipment, whether it's battery storage. You've then got all the work for defence with BAE Systems and Thales and Leonardo. You've then got all of the upgrades for the transmission distribution network for the kind of green revolution which is coming. And that's just covering probably like 10% of it. And then you've got all the SMEs and the knock-on impact that has for these big companies going down and construction. I mean, yeah, I always tend to think, and maybe I'm creating a narrative here, but the PR around engineering needs to just keep banging the drum, because it's so important. If you don't do it, you don't inspire a generation, and then you lose the opportunity to realise things like ITER, for example. So yeah, it's really, really exciting. So what's one project or documentary that you've not done yet that you'd like to do? Is there one out there that you go, I'd love to get involved with that or create one myself?
I like fixing stuff. So I like just being in my little workshop, which is a tiny little workshop in the garage around the back of my house. I love being out there. Any spare time I have, even if I haven't really got a project, I'll just go out and find something to make or fix or something like that. I'd love to do a show that was a bit of that, and I'm developing some ideas around that at the moment. I'd love something like that where you had a kind of workshopy base, but then you'd go off and investigate certain stories that you might have discovered or you've become curious about. And I like the idea of inspiring future generations of engineers, or just opening up people's eyes to engineering. It doesn't have to be young people. It can be anybody of any age. Some people change career completely.
That's right.
In their 30s, in their 40s. If you can open up people's eyes, and we know that there is a need for engineers in right across different sectors, that feels satisfying and rewarding for me. So something along those lines. Yeah, I've been very vague about that, Josh, but not intentionally. That's what I'd like to do.
No, that makes it's clear to me. So
that said, if there are any producers listening who have got access to something that's happening, I don't know, in the Middle East, in Saudi and Qatar, there's a lot of huge development and innovation going on over there. I'm quite keen to go and tell those stories and,
some real stuff
and see that as well.
Yeah.
So I'm open to anything, because I just have a general curiosity that needs satisfying. But if I had something that was ongoing that I haven't done yet, it would be that's different to what I've done before. It would be something like that.
I've told you already what I want you to be doing next. I want to see you offshore, an offshore wind farm. That's what I want you to be doing.
I want to be on top of that to sell.
That's it. Yeah, I want you inside the turbine generator. That's what I want to see you next. So you never know. We'll try.
I like being at heights. One of the most special moments I've had filming was a series called The World's Greatest Bridges. I loved series I did on bridges. I didn't know I loved bridges before I started filming these things. Oh my God, I love bridges. And I love civil engineering as a result of all this as well. But the tallest bridge in the world, the Millau Viaduct down in kind of south of France-ish, its tallest pylon from the base of the valley right to the top is just over 300 meters, I think. And so I got to climb to the top of that and poke my head out the top and look down on this beautiful, sleek bridge as it bends its way across this massive gap in the valley. And I had a moment, and when it was broadcast, a director that I'd worked with on other things who didn't know I was doing this, had just happened to watch me on telly, he sent me a text, have I just seen you cry on TV? And he was right. I didn't cry, but I was welling up, and he obviously saw it on camera when I look back. I remember welling up going, oh, I'm overwhelmed by this. This is just beautiful. This mix of what humans have created in this beautiful natural environment. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time, Josh.
That is amazing. There's also some unbelievable structures in China and bridges as well.
Yeah,
that are unbelievable. There's a few pages that I follow. They know how to engineer some unbelievable. But I guess like engineering's great, but like you said, it's the nature around it sometimes makes it look even better than it is. It is. It's like the kind of like the nature with what man can create almost and women.
Sometimes it's a juxtaposition because like, well, nature, let's leave it natural. But then when you can plonk something there that really shouldn't be there, but that is quite sensitive to its surroundings, you're like, oh God, that's just beautiful. Yeah. Well, I find it anyway. Yeah, I find it beautiful.
And that's what it's all about. So across your career, which has been across the communication space within engineering, is there any mentors or role models for you that you've tried to follow or have kind of helped you along the way? I always ask that of people in podcasts because I like to show that people help people within careers. You know, whether it's your parents, like you said at the start of it, whether it's someone you networked with years ago who is almost like a touch point for you, or someone you yourself have seen on the TV and thought, I like the way they communicate, I want to try and be like them. Is there anyone that you would say who's helped you along the way?
And I'm glad you mentioned my parents again, because they probably are the inspiration. Not directly and not consciously. They've not done it consciously. They're very wonderful parents, but they're very hands-off. They've never pushed me or tried to persuade me in any particular direction. But they've definitely kicked all that off. But along the way, I mentioned earlier, part of the privilege is the people I get to meet. I've met some fantastic people, some fantastic engineers in filming. And, you might spend, to get 2 minutes of TV time, you might spend 3 or 4 hours with them. That's just how long it takes. And in that time, you're not always filming. There's a lot of setup stuff. So you get to know somebody a little bit in that time. Because I'm not helping to set up when we're out filming. That's not my area of expertise. I don't know what I'm doing. So I get time with this contributor who's given up their time to come and speak with us. And there probably are a couple of engineers who really stick in my mind, and I've developed a connection with them within those 2, 3, 4 hours, where I've felt that I could go back to them later date where I've got this question, or there's this something that's come up with a production company. They want to know, could we get access to something that, I know you probably have the contact for that. So there are a couple of people like that. I've done quite a lot of civil engineering documentaries. So it's a couple of really quite accomplished and experienced civil engineers who I've gone back to a couple of times. At least one of them, no, at least 2 of them are Scottish as well, which is no surprise as well.
Oh, it feels better now.
I just thought I'd put that in there for you.
No, that's really interesting.
But I don't have any particular mentor or figure of influence for me, again, apart from my parents. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how best to answer your question on that. It's more finding my way, and what I find is I get in those interactions but part of it is the personal connection that you just make with somebody, and when you've made a personal connection, and it's lovely, and I get a real buzz from that. It's a physical buzz I get from it, but it's the ones where I'm left in awe about what they've achieved, what they know, and that gives me a kind of physical tingling. I'm just left very impressed by that person who I've now got a kind of personal connection with as well. It's quite special. Yeah, it's really quite special. And again, it's a massive, massive privilege.
I always say that people are the foundation of my career, and you've tapped into it there. It's not one person, and I'm sure you could name people who you like, loads of people who you go to for maybe a question around a specific area.
Yeah.
But I think it's always just important that young people recognise, or anyone recognises young people, that reach out to someone if you're interested. You know, if you've got a question, because they'll come back to you. They will come back to you. The people who want to help will always come back.
The people who want to help and the people who are passionate about what they do, which is they are the two character traits of the people I've got in my mind.
Yeah.
Who I would say have really impressed me.
Yeah.
Those two traits are totally true, Josh. Yeah,
No,
they want to help and they're so passionate about what they do, and they will get back to you.
And then it's infectious as well, that passion.
It is. It makes me want to go and do more every single time.
Absolutely. So what advice would you give to a young person today who is thinking of going into engineering?
I would say don't necessarily think about... as we were talking about earlier, it's such a massive field, engineering, and it can get quite confusing and you can get quite lost in it and go, I don't know, do you know what? I don't even think I want to do engineering. I would say try not to get lost in that. Think about what it is you like doing in your spare time. Think about what it is you do, and time just zips by, and before you know it, 3 hours have gone. Whether that's because you're reading about something or you're watching a documentary or you're out doing something. And it could be anything. It could be, I don't know, singing. It could be playing football, whatever it might be. It could be sewing. I don't know, whatever it might be. Think about what you love doing, where time just drains away when you're doing it. And if that's an area that you think, oh, I'd like to work in that, there will be an engineering role in it somewhere. So I would kind of flip it. And that's how I found my career. Was about thinking about what is it that I love, what is it I'm proud of, what is it that is that time drain for me. And I often say people will say don't make your hobby your career, because then it becomes a job rather than you lose a hobby. But and I'm not saying make your hobby a career, I'm just saying think about the areas and the subjects that you love, and we'll use the P word again, that you have a passion for.
Yeah.
And then try and build around that, because as we said in this podcast studio here, engineering is everywhere. And if you want to be involved in problem solving, if you want to be involved in making the world a slightly better place, or slightly easier or slightly more efficient, wherever it is, you will be able to do that. There will be a role in that somewhere. And that is true for singing or playing football or sewing or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can't add anything to that. I concur and agree. So from your vantage point, what's the most exciting thing happening within the engineering space at the moment? And I know engineering is a big topic which we've covered.
Yep.
But is there anything that you would say that is incredibly exciting at the moment?
Yeah, and it's the energy transition. Yeah, I'm so clear on that.
Yeah.
It's the clean energy transition. I have an environmental interest. I've said that already, so I'm swayed that way anyway. But from an engineering and a technical perspective, there's so many exciting things happening, and I liken it to, it feels like another industrial revolution that's happening. I think it's talked about like 4 industrial revolutions that we've had in the past. The big one, the industrial revolution in the mid-19th, the 20th century, is that right? No, further back, mid-18th through to mid-18th and 19th century. Basically Victorians. So all of our celebrated Victorian engineers, Telford, Brunel, the list goes on and on and on. That was the industrial revolution that we all think about when we discovered coal, and we started using steam. We had engines to replace manual labour and horses and whatever. There's an industrial revolution happening right now globally in this clean energy transition, and it feels like a really exciting place to be. And so I would say if you want to be part of changing the way the world works and making the world a better place, I can't think of a better place to be than in those industries right now. And that's renewables, that's nuclear, that's battery technology, it's transmission, it's all of this stuff. And in the UK itself, there's a lot talked about it because the current government have a big agenda towards going net zero. But globally, there's stuff happening everywhere, and it needs to be collaborative. So yeah, I find that incredibly exciting, Josh.
Absolutely. I've spent the last few days at Innovation Zero at Olympia.
Yeah.
And what just amazes me is that every sector within engineering is adapting, is changing, is evolving because of the green transition, and one of the best moments that covered it, which to me just shows how unbelievable the change is, was listening to a senior figure at Diageo, and he was talking about in Africa they have, I can't remember specifically where their distillery is for Guinness.
Yep.
But they are fully powered by biomass.
Right.
And to fuel the biomass, it's the shells of macadamia nuts.
Amazing.
And, see when you just go through that process,
Yep.
and you just think, sometimes it's quite easy to think about just the UK,
Yeah.
And where you live, just Scotland, for example, for myself. But then when you think about the changes that are happening in like Africa, that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he was talking about the impact. They only make changes to do with the transition that have a positive benefit on the community. So like the full wraparound benefit of the transition is so much more than the pennies and pounds for shareholders. It's also how much it can benefit people as well. And I just thought that was probably my highlight, that moment, because it just brought to life a senior figure at Diageo who probably has to deal with a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Discussing how they generate electricity in Africa, and I love that.
It is brilliant, and I'm pleased to talk about community as well, because I talk about this clean energy transition again with a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm. And you could listen to this and say, yeah, but we know you're an environmental boy. You're a big greenie. Of course, you're excited about it. But I'm excited about it for that. Yes, I'm excited about it because it makes us humans live better on Earth. We can live probably wealthier, healthier lives. But also, there's money to be made. Let's look at it from an individual's perspective. Yeah. This is all well and good, but I want to make money in my career. If you're driven by money, great. There's nothing wrong with taking a job or going with a career because you're driven by money. If you know that about yourself, go for it, because that's what's going to get you satisfied. There's money to be made in engineering. There are some very well paid jobs in engineering, and you need to know that. You need to follow what you're driven by. So yes, I talk about the clean energy transition so passionately because I'm a greenie, but also because there are jobs, there's money to be made, and it makes the world a better place. It's just win, 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 win. There's ping, ping, ping everywhere.
Right. You're absolutely right. And when I speak to a student, I say, what gets you going? Money is an answer, which is absolutely fine.
Good.
Because if you know you can then look where the best place to go, whether that's traveling. I mean, I know quite a few people who are out in the Far East doing amazing work. I mean, like from an engineering point of view, unbelievable work. Mm-hmm. But they're getting to earn excellent money as well.
Good.
And then likewise, I know people who work, long hours within an engine environment because they know they can earn good money through it.
Yeah.
That's there. There's no hiding away from it.
You can't shy away from it. We all need money to live.
Exactly.
And we would all like probably a bit more money to live a bit better. So you've got to be upfront about that.
You have to.
And let's be honest again, some engineering roles don't pay as well as roles in other sectors.
Yeah.
And so it can be, you can be put off by that. But you need to know that you can make a hell of a lot of money in engineering. Exactly. But you got to know that about yourself, and you got to know that and bear that in mind, as you say, when you look into what your career might be.
Absolutely. So we've come to the end. This has been, I can't believe we've come to the end. It's been amazing, like from my personal point of view, reaching out to you and when I reach out to anyone to come on the podcast, this is to inspire the next generation of engineers. And when you replied, it was always a sense of this is amazing because I've watched your stuff over the years. I know how an inspiration you are to me as a communicator. I said it to you beforehand, and you said, "Oh, the backslap and all the rest of it." But the importance of being able to communicate engineering now, I think, it's never been more important, because we know that the amount of work that's coming through the transition, we need engineers, but we also need innovators. So to have you here on the podcast and to share your story through the Engineer Career podcast and through into the community that we're building is something I'm incredibly grateful for you to have came on. So thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. Yeah, and more power to your elbow for what you're doing, Josh. It's really important. Without banging on, just finally, I am a middle-aged, white, middle-class male who is probably, your stereotype within the engineering community, and that needs to broaden out as well, and it is. But I'm sure you're doing great work with that as well. So people need to see people like them talking about and inspiring, being inspirational figures for next generation of engineers as well. And they are out there. and that is doing a job. But yeah, that would be my only call to you, is to keep trying to diversify as well and bring more people on, because they've all got fantastic stories to tell.
Absolutely, and I'll commit to that, definitely. So what keeps you passionate about engineering?
It's the fact that it makes the world a better place. I don't think there's anything more to it than that. Not all engineering makes the world a better place, but a lot of what is happening in the UK and what's happening in the world, and again, I'm thinking about this clean energy transition because I'm just so hot on that at the moment. Ultimately, it's there to make our lives better. And so much of engineering, all the civil engineering I've talked about, all the efficiencies that can be made, it all comes back to making our lives better, our lives wealthier, our lives healthier. And that's what really, really matters at the end of the day. That's why I'm continuously passionate about engineering, because that world and the fields in which we apply that problem solving is constantly evolving, constantly changing. And as humans, we will continue to apply our engineering mindsets to keep making sure we're doing things as best as we possibly can.
Brilliant. Well, Rob Bell, thank you so much.
Nice one, Josh.
Thank you.
Good lad.